You close at 30%, maybe 35%, but then you hire a closer and they close at 15%, maybe 20% if they are good. And the math breaks, ads become unprofitable, you get pulled back onto sales calls, and some of you have done this maybe 2 or 3 times now. You burned 5 to 15 grand on base salary, you blamed the closer, or maybe you blamed yourself. You maybe even started to believe that your offer is only closable by you. But that belief is a prison. And in this video, I'm going to show you what's actually happening on your sales calls, why you can close so much better than your closer can, and it has nothing to do with your sales skills. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand is that the reason why you can close better than your closer is not because you're a better salesperson. It's not because you're better at sales. You know, you don't even necessarily follow a script. You do something far more powerful. You are able to demonstrate expertise live. You know, you can read the leads or prospects specific situation, pull the right case study, explain your methodology in a way that maps to that person's reality, handle objections with deep knowledge, and the lead or prospect walks away thinking, this person knows exactly what they're doing. You know, the sales calls that you are running, they are essentially free consultations disguised as a sales call. You know, the lead or prospect buys because they experienced your expertise firsthand. They get a taste of the transformation on the call itself. And this is what you would call an authoritative or consultative selling style, and it requires you knowing more than the prospect and them being impressed by you. You know, you get into the weeds, they say wow, and then they buy. But that's fundamentally unscalable because it depends on one person's knowledge, pattern recognition, and ability to read the room. And those are things you can't put into a script and hand to someone else. And that's the exact reason why your closer can't close the way you do. You know, your closers, they aren't stupid, they aren't lazy, they are probably very good at their job, they're probably very good at selling. But the thing is that the lead, the prospect, arrives to the call cold. They don't really understand what makes your business different to the 10 other options they are comparing. They don't understand the methodology, they don't trust your brand, they have a head full of objections, questions, and skepticism. And when you take this call, you can build the trust from zero through your expertise, through your knowledge. You can do it starting from scratch every single time. But a closer can't do that. They don't have 10 years of expertise in your domain. They can't pull the exact right analogy out of thin air. They can't read the room the same way as someone who built the methodology. So what then happens? Well, your closer becomes a librarian instead of being a closer. You know, the first 35 to 40 minutes out of every single call is just the closer explaining what the business does, how the methodology works, why it's different, what results you have gotten, and so on. Your closers are re-educating every single prospect from scratch every single time. And by the time they start closing, the prospect has already mentally checked out or they've run out of time. You know, the closer isn't failing at closing. They're failing at educating, and education was never supposed to be their job in the first place. But when you take the call, well, you can build rapport quickly, you can make the diagnosis quickly, and then you can go deeply into your expertise, and then you can very easily close them on one call. But your closer, they can't do that because they don't have the same expertise, they don't have your knowledge. They are a closer. They know about selling and closing, but they don't have the knowledge about the thing that you're selling, or at least not at the same level as you have. And most people think the solution to this problem is finding a better closer, building better scripts, doing more training and role playing, having them study your sales call recordings, or having the closer shadow you for weeks. And you have maybe tried all of these, but you know, the script feels dead when someone else reads it, and shadowing helps marginally, but you know, the closer still can't replicate your depth. You know, the real problem here is that you have a trust architecture problem, not a hiring problem. And that may sound, you know, like complicated jargon, but what I mean is that you are building trust in the wrong places. You know, all of the trust building, methodology explanation, proof and case studies, why you versus alternatives, objection handling, and no time spent with the brand, all of that should happen before the call. But right now, you're doing all of this on the call itself, and you can handle that because of your knowledge, because of your expertise, but nobody else can. And the fix is not to educate your closer about how to, you know, build trust live on calls or with all your knowledge and expertise. The fix is to move all this trust building to before the call so that the closer doesn't have to do it at all. You know, just think about what happens with warm inbound organic leads. You know, the ones who maybe found you from YouTube, who have watched 5+ hours of your content, who understand your methodology, who have seen your case studies, who feel like they actually know you. Well, even a junior closer can close these people. They are so easy to close. And the reason is that the trust was already built before the call. They already understood everything. They knew about your methodology, they knew about your process, they knew about your case studies. The call is just confirmation and not persuasion. And now compare that to a cold lead, you know, who saw one ad, and then clicked and then booked a call. Well, they know nothing about your methodology. They don't trust you. They haven't seen any proof, and you have built zero connection with them. So no wonder your closer can't close them, and even you can barely close them. And the only way you can do this again is with your knowledge, with your expertise. And the reason why training doesn't fix this, the reason you can't clone yourself, because training helps with actual closing skills, with the selling part. You know, you can train your tonality, you can train your frame control, you can train to ask the right questions, you can train trial closes, you can train objection handling techniques. You know, these are legitimate skills that you can train, but no training can give your closer 10 years of expertise. You can't train someone to have your depth of knowledge about your industry. You know, your closer, well, they can maybe mimic your structure, but they cannot mimic the substance. They cannot mimic what you actually say and your knowledge. So stop trying to clone yourself, because that's not possible. Instead, build a system that handles the parts of your call that require your expertise. The education, the proof, the mechanism explanation, the authority demonstration, and let the system deliver it to every lead and every prospect before they even meet your closer. And then your closer only needs to be good at the actual closing part, which they probably already are. So the 5 things that need to happen before the call for you to achieve this is understanding, you know, the lead and prospect, they need to know exactly what you do, they need to know how you're different, and if you don't do this, well, then they will always ask, so what do you guys do? And your closer is not going to be able to explain this as well as you do. So the lead or prospect needs to understand exactly what you do before the call. They need to understand how your process works, how your methodology works, how you're different, and so on. Secondly, they need to believe you. They need to believe that your methodology actually works, because otherwise they will ask you, how do I know this works? And again, your closer won't be able to answer this as well as you do. Then they need to know how you differentiate from all your competitors. You know, why they should choose you and not cheaper alternatives. And if they don't know this, they will ask what makes you different. And again, you are able to answer this better than your closer. Fourthly, you need to pre-handle all your most common objections, and you need to answer your most common questions before the call, because you are always going to be able to answer their questions better than your closer, because you have all the knowledge, you have all the answers to their questions, but your closer, they probably don't have the answers. And then fifthly, they need to spend time with you before the call. This is so that they trust you, they know you, so that they have a connection with you, because otherwise they will just tell you, can you send more info? So if you're able to do these 5 things before the call, then your closers are going to be able to close as well as you do, or probably even better, because most likely they are better at selling than you are. They are better at closing, but you are better at all the other stuff. And the things that you are better at, we need to put that before the call. We need to make the lead or prospect consume all of that before they ever meet your closer, so that they don't have to do it. So this is how it changes the sales call itself. So the call will go from persuasion to confirmation. So before, the prospect would tell you, so tell me what you guys do. How is this different from, you know, competitor? I've been burned before, that's expensive, I need to think about it. And that's why you require 40 minutes of education before any selling happens. And that's the exact reason why they always default to I'll get back to you. But after, if you put all of the education before the call, then they will say, I get the methodology. Does this apply to my unique situation? I saw the case study. I want that. I'm ready. What's the process? Well, then you only need like 10 minutes of confirmation. You need 10 minutes to figure out if they are fit to work with you, and the rest of the call is just selling, the closing part, and that's what your closer is good at. So the things you need to do next is you need to start auditing your sales calls. You need to figure out what knowledge you are providing on sales calls, what information you're telling the lead or prospect that the closer isn't, what expertise do you demonstrate. Then you need to find the biggest education gap. What do you always need to educate the lead or prospect? Then you need to find your most common objections and what questions you're constantly answering. Then once you have all of that, then you need to record assets, you need to record videos and put that before the call so that you don't have to do it on the call itself. And after you have recorded the videos to assets, then you need to force everyone who books a call with you to actually watch those assets. And therefore, they will arrive on the call already understanding everything, and then your closer will be able to close them. You need to accept that the problem is structural, it's not people. Your closer is probably very good at closing. They are just not able to demonstrate your expertise, that you can actually do what you say that you do, because you're the only one that has that knowledge. And because you're the only one that has it, you need to record videos, make the prospect watch those before the call, and now this whole process is scalable. Now you have demonstrated your expertise in a scalable manner that doesn't require you. Now you can hire as many closers as you want, and they will all be able to perform as well as you. Their close rate will probably be higher than yours. So the question isn't anymore how do I find a better closer, the question becomes, how do I get my expertise, my proof, my authority into the prospect's head before they ever speak to anyone on my team? And once you are able to answer that, your closers will be able to close as well as you do. So if you want to see the exact system that achieves this, I've created another video on my channel, so I will link that video in the description below, so go and watch that after this one. But if you have any more questions right now, I will also put my Instagram in the description below, so feel free to shoot me a DM and I will be more than happy to help you out. See you in the next one.